Hello and welcome to another episode of the Studio Series with Jim Linnell. I am Dan Snyder, your host as always, with my wonderful assistant, Quinn. And today we are going to be discussing a little bit about some amazing artists from the world, some Japanese artists today. Some are Al Stolman Award winners, but they're each wonderful in their own right. And I'm really excited to see what Jim's got for us. He has a treasure trove of artwork on his wall, and we're lucky enough to see it. So, Jim, what you got?
Well, howdy, everyone, and it sure is great to be back here again, sharing a little bit about some of the treasures that we've got hanging on the wall here at Elk Track Studio. And today we get to talk a little bit about the Japanese influence on our craft and where it came from and kind of how it got started. Of late, I think if anybody that goes out on Facebook or looks around on the internet, I think you'll see lots of just amazing leatherwork that's being shown by some of the artists over in Japan that are doing just magnificent work. And in fact, I get to be one of the judges that does some of the judging up at the show in Sheridan at the leather debut. And you know what? Some of the stiffest competition is now coming out of Asia, out of Japan, and it has been for some time. A lot of those folks up there, well, Sheridan, Wyoming is where, quote, the Sheridan style originated, right? But you know what? Some of the most prolific Sheridan type work and some of the most intricate has been being done in Japan, and I've got a few examples that we'll show here as we go through it. But kind of where. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the Sheridan style. We with Barry King, and he kind of shared a little bit of insight into that style, and just to hear about how this style of carving has been so influential on the craft the world over. I mean, that speaks volumes to the just the detail and the wonderful world of carving leather. So
absolutely. Well, they are certainly I don't know, perfectionists. They typically, the ones I know anyway, just can't do anything that's less than their absolute best. And I think that shows in the work that you see. One of the first artists that we want to look at is a fellow by the name of Kaziuki Nakajima, and he goes back a long ways in the world of leatherworking. And when you look at his work, obviously you're not seeing Sheridan style stuff. This piece here, I'm thinking, I don't remember, there may be a year on it. I'd have to look closer, but he back in the 70s, there was a magazine. It was the predecessor of what we have today. It was called Make It With Leather magazine. And one of the things that they did each year is they would have a contest. It was their carved picture contest. And basically they would have artists from around the world submit carvings that they had done that might be suitable for a magazine cover. And then for the next year, they would rotate those out as the different magazine covers. Anyway, the world got introduced to Kazz. Kazz just was in love with the Western lifestyle, and I think some of what we see going on in Japan is a reflection of that. What we have here in Texas and in this part of our country, we kind of can take for granted our Western lifestyle and the I guess maybe even romance that it has as it's projected through the Westerns and the cowboy movies and such. And that's what they see and capture. Interesting that, one of here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we have the Lone Star Leathercrafters Leather Guild, and it's probably one of the biggest leather guilds in the country or in the world. And believe it or not, we probably have more Japanese members than any other guild. It's amazing, because if you're going to be a part of a leather guild, well, golly, let's get the one that's right in the heart of the West, right? Let's be a part of the one that's right there in the middle of Texas. But and so some of that is where what you see here in Kazz's work came through. if anybody ever has a chance to come to Fort Worth, there's a couple of pieces that are on display at the Al Stoneman Museum that were done by Al. One of them is called the Bush Popper, which was done with several layers of leather, but he actually engraved the silver that is there. And if I think we have the ability to zoom in at this picture that we're looking at here, I think you'll notice that, or you might, it'd be easy to not notice, but those spurs that you're looking at, even that little plate down in the corner there, that's actually a piece of silver that he engraved. The spurs that the cowboy's wearing, those are actually pieces of silver that he has in there. And I don't remember, like the corner pieces you see on the saddle, the silver on the corner of the skirt, that's also real silver. It's just an amazing amount of work. And we're zoomed in really close. What does that say there? 1986? Is that what that says there?
Yeah, I think so. July 1986.
Okay, so that's when that came in. But yeah, you can see the detail there. But that's also filigreed. Then it's got several layers in it as well. So it's just it's an amazing piece. This is one that he did for George Hurst, is who he did this for.
And to be, I mean, this was all done without the use of lasers or without the use of any like CNC stuff. I mean, that silver was engraved and was manipulated to look like a spur.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the conchas on the saddle and the silver on the saddle is also the same. I don't remember if you can see the guy's belt buckle. Yeah, there's the other spur in his hand. Anyway, it's an amazing piece of work, and this is what was being done. This was when, I guess, where you were first starting to see at least in the leatherworking world, some of the infatuation that the folks over there had with our Western lifestyle. That was exactly what was trying to be captured with this piece and conveyed. Yeah. And I think it's just an amazing piece. And no, it's not any recognizable style of floral that anybody probably has ever seen before. It was his. So
that's pretty neat. And, that's always fascinated me, some of these people, some of these artists who have have this amazing concept of the West, but they may have never been on a horse or been out to the Wild West. Why do you think there's such a huge interest, with the West, this romancing and this romanticization of the the Wild West?
I'm not sure the why of that. Obviously it's something that's uniquely American, and it's probably, well, being from the West myself, I think it's one of the better parts of our country. But that I may be biased about that. But it really is something that I think they've seen. The cowboys were always heroes. They were always coming out on top, wearing the white hat and so forth. And I think that's probably some of it. But I don't know that I can explain why that culture adapted to that. But, the other side of that, and this is something I think is important to share too about the growth of this in Japan. And that is, there's a couple of tool companies over there. One of them is Craft Japan. The other is Kyo Chanel. And those two companies, in fact, Craft Japan in particular is almost like the Tandy Leather of Japan. They have a store and outlet. They manufacture tools, but they also have a catalog and internet presence. And they actually even employ instructors that go around and do teaching and passing this along. And the growth of the craft, the growth of leatherwork in Japan is very, very much related to those companies. The fact that they had their own resources right there to turn to. I happen to have here a book, or this is a catalog from Kyo Chanel, one of those companies, and you can see it's a full blown catalog. It's got, of course, it's kind of hard to read if you don't read Japanese, but they've got all the stuff that It isn't as thick as Springfield's, but it's got a whole lot of stuff and all the supplies to be able to do something. Craft Japan has theirs too. I couldn't lay my hands on it. I was looking. In fact, I'll back out of the way for just a second so you can take a shot at this pile right here. These are all books that were written in Japanese. These are leathercraft instruction books on how to do different projects and so forth. And I actually have more of these over there, but these are all written in Japanese. And so they have done a lot to promote the craft over there, and keep it alive and keep it growing. And
that,
we're thankful for them. They're an important part.
And that, Japanese art has always been I've always been very fascinated with it, because I remember going to an art museum one time. I think it was the Nelson Atkins in Kansas City, but they had a huge display of Japanese artwork, and the attention to detail, the ability to have everything so clean, and the finesse to get these cuts. I mean, that is very impressive, and it's wonderful that I think this is growing over there, and definitely Craft Japan. I've heard of them. I've ordered stuff from them as well, and it's really neat to see their take on tools that we take for granted.
One of the things that George Hurst told me, he was over there one time for one of their expositions. They have, we have leather shows here, a few of them around the country. Over there, though, leatherwork is viewed much more as an art form. They have one of their great shows that they have, at least when George was over there, was at their Tokyo, basically Metropolitan Museum of Art. It was at the big center in Japan, showing in there as fine art, not being shoved off in a corner as some craft or some kind of thing you build for horses. It was fine art, and some of the work, I have a catalog from that show, and some of the work that was on display is just phenomenal. I could go on and on and on about how many there are. I only have a few samples here of some of the art that comes from there, but it's amazing, and it's exciting too, because when we get exposed to leatherworkers that take our stuff and go different directions with it, it expands our horizon, expands what we know about what leatherwork is. So,
and I think this is a question that I have. Maybe this will be the overarching question for these episodes, but what is it that sets that Japanese style of leather carving apart from a lot of the traditional American or even European carving?
Well, and that's a little hard to say. They have their own style of art, batik, and one of the artists we're going to talk about here later is Michiko Matsuda, who has done an amazing job of keeping the original artist techniques, exploring those and applying them to leather, and she's really done a great job with that. I think kind of what we're going to look at, and maybe the next one we look at here would be Akiko Okada. She is another person who has helped to really broaden the horizons of leatherwork in Japan as well. She is an Al Stolman Award winner, and she did a very she's one of those that does Sheridan style leatherwork better than many in Sheridan do it. And I think we've got some pictures of her that will flash up there in a minute.
Real quick on this one, just to give a little information about this. So all of those, what's behind all of those kind of scalloped and floral carvings there, that's leather. Like all of that's been carved, like cut out, right?
Yes, I believe that's filigreed out. All of the leather, what would normally be background area in a leather carving, that's been filigreed or cut away, and then another piece of leather laid in behind that.
That takes some extreme precision to do.
Well, yeah, you got to be pretty focused. It can't have no oopses in the middle of that. I mean, it's real easy to cut something out that shouldn't be.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, well, let's take a look at some of the other artists here.
Okay. Or we'll have that pop up here in a minute, I'm sure.
And so Akiko